Hello, college football fans. Welcome to another episode of the Preferred Walk-Ons show, a college football show about college football. Um, Another miserable week to be a UCF fan, but we made it. We made it through. We're still here on Wednesday. Not happy by any means. And I know this is going to shock all of you, but that's where we're going to start our review process. But first, Meech, it's well, I guess it doesn't really matter what day it is when we're actually recording this, but I just told them it's Wednesday. How you doing today, man? How's your week going?
Having a happy hump day, getting through the week as normal. The good news is UCF can't lose the bye week this week. So, at least we won't be sad next week, right?
Yeah, we won't be sad at all. Oh my god. All right, let's do this. So UCF lost to Cincinnati 27-24. Snaps the conference winning streak, snaps the 30-something game streak of scoring 30 points or more. It essentially ended the run. And it doesn't mean that, UCF is over the program, but essentially, the run of the couple undefeated seasons and, New Year's Six Bowl.
The New Year's Six Bowl, yeah.
It's done. And so, Meech, I would love to get your initial thoughts here on everything before I just word vomit everywhere.
All right, yeah, because I set a 10-minute timer hard for this segment, so we have 8 minutes remaining already. So I'll keep my thoughts short, and then you can kind of riff. So where do I start? Obviously, Cincinnati's played incredibly well. I got to give them credit, especially on defense. Luke Fickell kind of rotating out their defensive backs the entire game and just making sure they were fresh. I think Kyle was telling me that they played 8 defensive backs in this game, which, that's a luxury not a lot of teams have where they can roll 8 deep and, keep cycling guys through. And, when you talk about playing an up-tempo offense, you always hear about, you have to cycle through your defensive linemen, right, the big guys. But, no one ever talks about how tired it can get, running with a receiver. Because in a lot of these spread offenses, the receivers aren't even really blocking the corners every play. They're just releasing straight up the field like it's a go route. Yep. So the corners are running 30 yards down the field almost every play. That shit can get tiring. So just coming in with that strategy in itself, incredible. And the red zone defense obviously was the biggest difference in this game for them.
Yep.
Tightening up, making sure, forcing turnovers most notably. And I think, this loss is very bad, right? But what I will say, because I know you're about to go on a long rant of negative things, I will say this. The dreams for the conference championship are still not dead.
Yeah,
as long as UCF handles their business and Cincinnati, maybe stumbles somewhere along the way, which they are one to do. They have shown that in recent years. Things could still break right. You could still win the conference championship and you could still be the best team in the AAC. But that speaks to larger issues with the program, which is what I will send over now to you.
So, all right. So let me actually start with the positivity.
You have 6.5 minutes.
Yeah. I got it. So let me start with the positivity. I don't disagree with you. There is still very much a chance at a conference championship appearance. It would take Cincinnati slipping up a couple of times, unless there are some weird tiebreakers. So, you don't feel great about that. At the moment, you certainly don't feel great about even going into Tulane or Temple and winning those games. I certainly don't feel great about where the team's at, that's necessarily going to happen with the way those two teams are playing. But on the positive side, you're not wrong. Those conference championship dreams are still alive. Every year, a team goes in wanting to win the conference. And the irony of this year finally being the year where the AAC is getting a level of respect, where there's 7 teams getting AP poll votes. There's 3 ranked teams, and it's not UCF. It's just ironic that this is how finally the AAC gets the respect that we've been asked.
UCF has died for the AAC sins.
It really certainly feels that way. What an unbelievably frustrating game to watch. Ironically, we spoke about last week a lot of the things that came to fruition. I spoke about Luke Fickell and how he clearly had an understanding of the UCF offense. Well, that was obvious from the jump. What you mentioned just before in terms of rotating defensive backs, like they came in with a game plan as to how to stop UCF. They took bits and pieces of it from Pitt, where they saw when Pitt got pressure, obviously that changed things. There are so many places to go, but where I want to start is with quarterback play. Dillon Gabriel's a really, really, really good young quarterback. Like I've mentioned, he throws a really pretty deep ball. He, when given the time, does a good job of not necessarily just sticking on one receiver, and he seems to clearly go through reads. You could see his head moving, and even if it's just looking off defensive back, sometimes still he's using his eyes. He's looking downfield. Unfortunately, against Cincinnati, he didn't have very much time to make any sort of reads because the pressure was so immense. The offensive line play was obviously very poor in this game, which is frustrating considering, after the Stanford game, I think everybody around the nation was talking about what a top-level offensive line this was and should be, especially considering the talent you brought back from last year. I think
that was the problem in the first half of the Pitt game, which ultimately lost the game, is that the offensive line couldn't handle what they were seeing up front.
Right. And so there's a couple of things there. When we look at Miami and when we look at FSU, two teams that have struggled with the offensive line play, we don't blame the talent. We blame the coaching. And I think you can do the same thing here. This is a talented offensive line, and the constant thing that, I felt about the Pitt game and the thing that I've talked about since is putting your players in the best position to succeed. I don't think Josh Heupel and his staff have done that over those two games. Now, you lost 2 games by 4 points total. You didn't get dominated, but you're clearly the superior team to both in terms of talent. And the fact that you struggled so much offensively out of the gate in both games shows a lack of preparedness to me. I think my biggest issue with the way that this game worked out in terms of, looking at Josh Heupel and his play calling and his preparedness is everything is very predictable. You can move with pace and you can run an up-tempo offense without just running the same variation of 4 plays every single time. And look, I'm not a head football coach. I didn't play football myself at any sort of semblance of a high level, but I've watched enough and can break down the game enough to say, okay, I've seen plenty of fast tempo offenses, including UCF's last year and especially UCF's in 2017 under Scott Frost, to say you can move with pace without just running the same play over and over.
You can be multiple, yeah. I mean, look at Oklahoma right now, right?
Right. And so I don't really understand the conservatism on the offensive side of the ball when you have such an elite level skill position team. You have a team full of studs, and what's frustrating is I do know UCF ran 11 personnel, which is 1 running back and 1 tight end with 3 receivers for the majority of the game. And to me, that's UCF's worst personnel grouping. Why are you not going? You basically, in that personnel grouping, if you're going to pass, that means you have to keep the running back in to block. If you're going to pass out of that formation and the tight ends running routes, well, you have better guys that could be skill position players in the slot. Otis Anderson's turned into just a running back for some reason, and they never bring him out of the backfield. You're not getting your best playmakers in space. When you're running such a predictable offense and there's only certain reads that Dillon Gabriel can make, you're not putting him in position to succeed. When you're stubborn and will only go with your guy at the quarterback position, as opposed to mixing things up and bringing in Darryl Mack, like we talked about last week, that no matter what the situation was, Darryl Mack should have gotten some run.
I'm going to push back on that for one reason, is because I think if you start juggling quarterbacks, especially with a true freshman, it maybe shakes his confidence. I don't agree that maybe switching quarterbacks would have been the best
if your freshman quarterback can't handle the fact that you're going into a week saying, hey, the best way for us to win this game is to, even if you're playing well, get Darryl Mack in the game just for a couple of possessions here and there, just to change things up. then he's not your leader of the future. Like if
Right.
the kid can't handle, hey, we have multiple players on this team for a reason. We have any other position. If a player struggles or not even struggles, sometimes you just sub out personnel groupings. There's no reason there shouldn't have been packages there for Daryl Mack to come in. And the frustration when you're seeing your offense just getting pulverized and not Dylan Gabriel's lack of ability to move outside of the pocket absolutely affects this team. And it's not to say that he's bad.
And that's 10 minutes, by the way, so let's try and wrap it up.
I know. I know. But it's not to say that he's bad. It's not to say that he's incapable of eventually moving outside of the pocket and doing all of the things that you need a quarterback to do. But he's 18. He's not quite there yet. And so the way I want to wrap this up is, UCF lost 2 games by 4 points total. They were clearly the more talented team in both. But, for the last couple of years, they've been getting everybody's best shot. All this did, in my mind, was for all of the people that dismissed what happened over the last couple of years, all this did was solidify how great those teams were in my mind. Because
I agree.
When you're looking at going undefeated, the competition has not changed for UCF. And if you want to say it was just Mackenzie Milton and that's why they were that great, well, that's fine. Because if you look at this entire century, when teams have really been at their absolute peak, it's been under a specific quarterback. If you look at it, Alabama's peaked in the last couple of years, even as great as they've been. They peaked Tua. Clemson with Deshaun Watson. Texas A&M was only good under Johnny Manziel. The Gators were by far their best with Tim Tebow. Mackenzie Milton was that guy. And so you lose Mackenzie Milton earlier than you were anticipating, to be frank, and then Daryl Mack breaks his ankle in an offseason. I think if Daryl Mack never gets hurt, they might not lose either of these games either, because
that's a butterfly effect that I agree with. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so as great as Dylan Gabriel has been, maybe Daryl Mack was better in this offense, and this offense does need somebody who can run. So, it's a frustrating end to that specific part of the run. It doesn't mean that UCF can't continue to be dominant within the conference. But I do have my concerns about Josh Heupel's game planning. I do have my concerns about the style in which he's decided to run his offense, considering the skill position players. And now going forward, it feels like you sort of wasted what should have been a really great season because of stubbornness in a coaching staff and a lack of preparedness off the top in both of the losses. So you have to be held accountable as a coach for not putting your players in best position to succeed when it's college football. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened here. And, I just want to say that, I'm just so much more sure about those teams from the last couple of years now that it's frustrating because they're the ones that are getting dismissed as a result of this year's flaws.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry. So we went a few minutes too long.
No, it's okay. We can move right on now into Ohio State versus Michigan State. I'm going to say it, Jeremy. Ohio State's the best team in the country.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Justin Fields didn't even really have a good game, and he finished with over 300 yards of total offense almost, and 3 touchdowns against what is a very good, still to this day, a very good Michigan State defense.
Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins is an absolute animal. 24 carries, 172 yards, and a touchdown. He averaged 7.2 yards per carry. They're getting contributions from a lot of young receivers this year who seem to be kind of growing into their roles as the season progresses. And this is the best Ohio State defense since the 2014 team that has all those NFL guys, Joey Bosa, Marshawn Lattimore, Eli Apple, Von Bell, basically the entire Saints secondary. If we're talking about it.
That was a loaded team. My goodness.
So now you have guys like Sean Wade, you have Chase Young, you have Jordan Fuller, you have Tuff Borland still in the middle. They just feel to me like the most, because Alabama, I still have a lot of questions about Alabama's defense. They've not played a team like when they play LSU, like a team that can actually stress them on the defensive side of the ball and keep up with their offense. Then I think we'll have a little bit more of the questions answered in terms of Alabama. But right now, Ohio State just looks like the most complete team in the country to me.
Well, that's the thing that's most interesting. And when it comes to Ohio State, I think we both sort of anticipated that without Urban Meyer, there might be at least a little bit of a step back. But what's
Well, did you hear that? Did you hear that the Redskins are already considering to hire Ryan Day as their head coach?
like what?
Yeah, I mean,
What's so interesting for Ryan Day and the Ohio State staff is that I think they got lucky that Urban got out when he did, and it didn't come with the ultimate massive recruiting violations that were coming, and so he had his health issues, and had to leave, and he'll be back at USC or Notre Dame or wherever eventually. But this team didn't seem to lose a step whatsoever, and if anything,
it helps when they've been recruiting at just like ridiculous
an
clips,
unbelievable
right?
level. Well, and now Justin Fields is the best quarterback they've had in this whole run.
Yeah,
He's better than Braxton Miller or
JT
J.T.
Barrett,
Barrett
Cardale
or Cardell
Jones,
Jones or Dwayne
Dwayne
Haskins.
Haskins.
Funny Joe Burrow.
Yeah,
He's never really played, and he might end up.
I have a question
Whatever.
for you, kind of unrelated.
Sure.
Or sort of unrelated. If you're Georgia, are you kicking yourself watching Justin Fields this year and thinking, no you don't, even with, you don't,
Jake Fromm's
you wouldn't
my guy.
take, I know you love Jake Fromm, but you wouldn't take Justin Fields over Jake Fromm?
That's such a tough question. I think you can guarantee that you wanted Jake Fromm over Jacob Eason. But
yeah, that's
right.
Yeah,
But,
that's obvious now, right?
yeah, and we'll get to that. But I still think that with the way that Georgia's playing and with what Jake Fromm does for them, I'm not like mad. I mean, I'm a little
Right.
frustrated watching Justin Fields ball out, and if he beats me in a playoff,
Well, because they could have managed that situation a lot better and possibly kept him, right?
Right, of course they could have.
Instead of just trotting him out as the punt protector and running fake punts with him and burning his year of eligibility.
Right. I tend to agree with you. The one thing that Ohio State is going to go undefeated, right? I mean, like that doesn't.
That schedule is cake, right?
Yeah, the schedule.
Penn State scares me. I will say that.
It's the one game, but the thing that I want to go to from there, and it's something to keep an eye on at this point. Ohio State is going to go undefeated. If Oklahoma beats Texas this weekend, which I anticipate, Oklahoma is going to go undefeated. Clemson.
You don't think Texas and maybe a Big 12 championship rematch could get them a second time?
Sure, maybe, but
the Big 12 is so weird. I continue with your point, but I agree.
Big 12 is weird. It happens, okay? But Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Clemson sure all feel like they're about to go undefeated. Like I'm more sure of those three teams going undefeated today than I've been at this point in any of the past few years when it comes to dogs in any of the other conferences, right? There's such a gap between the talent and the skill and the production of those teams and anybody else. So the reason I find that so interesting is that all of a sudden I think there's a very good chance that we get caught in a scenario where you're going to see like a one-loss Georgia or a one-loss LSU or a one-loss Bama to one of those teams that ends up actually getting left out of the playoff this year because of undefeated teams, or we're going to really be tested for the first time to see how much conference and
undefeated conference championships
and how much that really matters. Because if we're doing the best team thing and Clemson just sort of skates by the rest of the way in a bad ACC, which is publicly acknowledged as a bad ACC now, where are we going to end up when it comes to the teams like Georgia and LSU or even Alabama that might have just one singular loss to what will be probably the number 1 or 2 or 3 team in the country? So that's what things are sort of that every time I see Ohio State dominate this way, every time I see Oklahoma dominate this way, that's where I go, because the Clemson doesn't even need to dominate. The ACC is horrific. So
right, but that could be to their detriment, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Is like they're going to go undefeated, but that could ultimately end up being their problem, and they could Clemson could weirdly face the problems of UCF from the last couple of years, which is just simply your conference is not as good as these other ones, and the quality loss scenario. So that's what I keep thinking of when I see teams like Ohio State continue to dominate their competition.
All right, let's move on now to Auburn versus Florida. Florida obviously taking home the win at in the Swamp in this one, 24-13. Bo Nix had himself a Dylan Gabriel true freshman stinker on the road here.
He did. Oh.
He really cost them this game. 11 of 27 passing for 154 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. Do you want to guess his QBR in this game?
Oh, it couldn't have been higher than like 15.
6.6.
Ooh.
Kyle Trask obviously suffered that weird kind of non-injury knee injury.
Yeah.
Where he returned, so I assume he'll be fine. But this week now they're going to right, exactly, and we'll get to who they play next week or this week when we get to the previews, so we can focus a little bit more on this game.
Yeah.
The Auburn losing here has set up the chaos Auburn scenario now.
Yep.
Where these 5 teams are just going to just annihilate each other over the next it's literally the next like 4 weeks of football. These 5 teams are basically going to single-handedly determine the SEC representative in the playoff.
Yep.
So, man, Auburn's defense and Florida's defense is incredible.
That's the thing. So
and so Florida's defense is so incredible, and their skill position player, like Kyle Trask sucks. Hold on. Let me stop. Kyle Trask is extremely not talented. Sure. Like, if you watch it, he has one of the weakest arms I've ever seen in a Power 5 starting quarterback. Have you, like, and if you think I'm coming off as like a Florida hater, right? Like, just go watch him throw the football.
Right.
Like, you talk about the ball jumping out of – like, the ball just kind of
it just gets there. Yeah.
It just somehow, right? And so the talent around him, though, is so good. Mm-hmm. You saw a guy like Freddie Swain just had a ridiculous game, right?
Crazy.
And then who was the other one that had the long touchdown?
Josh Hammond had a good game. Oh, and then Michael Pirine had the crazy run for a touchdown.
Yeah. And so that's the thing is they have – like, they're an offense that rolls like six guys deep who could take take a 6-yard slant, and they're gone. It's a touchdown. And that paired with their defense, as long as Kyle Trask doesn't turn the ball over, which he hasn't, and he's actually been really, really efficient with his passing. Yeah. This, as much as it painted, this is a really, really good Florida team, man.
It is.
And it goes back to what we talked about when Franks got hurt initially. The stability, and it's like that might have been the biggest benefit for them out of anything.
Well, that's where I was about to go with it, actually, is that, and I feel bad for Felipe Franks, I do, but Kyle Trask, like you said, not exactly a dime thrower, right? But he's not going to make mistakes. So, like, he had a couple of fumbles in this game, but that was just simply Derek Brown being an absolute beast. Like, that had nothing to do with Kyle Trask not making reads. That was Derek Brown just annihilating the Florida offensive line. The thing that Kyle Trask brings to this offense is he's making up for some of their issues on the offensive line, not because he's running around, but because basically the coaches are game planning like, all right, we're going to snap it to you and you're going to get it out of your hands as quick as possible. That's something that Felipe Franks refused to do. Felipe Franks thought Felipe Franks was a Heisman Trophy candidate. Felipe Franks was not a Heisman Trophy candidate.
What was the this is what I do.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
that was the epitome of the Felipe Franks experience.
Yeah, and again, this is not to say that Felipe Franks was bad, and I feel bad for the kid. You ever want to see injuries, but if we're just talking strictly what makes Florida a better football team, having a quarterback who's in there who knows, like, all right, I've just got to do what the coaches tell me and get the ball out as quick as possible. It's helpful for the offense. And on the defensive side of the ball, they have so much speed and physicality. That was really the thing that won that game as efficiently as the offense played. I mean, they turned the ball over a lot. What it was is that the defense was absolutely dominating Bo Nix. I don't know how much of that was game plan and disguising things. It seemed like there was a lot of pressure on Bo Nix, who can run around, who did run around. But then players weren't open downfield. And when you have guys like C.J. Henderson that are able to stay step for step.
Their defensive backfield is, and like
It's
Florida
amazing.
fans are annoying with the DBU
No, but
thing,
this
but
defensive backfield is wild.
it's incredible.
Yeah,
Just flat out incredible.
Well, and so the one thing that I will say for Auburn that you can second guess for them is they didn't get the ball in Anthony Schwartz's hands one time.
One carry for negative 4 yards.
Yeah, and so to
no
me,
catches.
Right. How do you not, when your offense is struggling, game plan something to try to get the ball in the hands of a home run hitter like Anthony Schwartz, who was
when you need
a
spark, especially too.
and who was playing against a bunch of former teammates. He went to American Heritage in South Florida, so I'm sure he was frustrated. Maybe he's more hurt still than we know. Whatever. All of this is to say the Gators played really, really, really well and deserved to win that game. And the home crowd obviously played into that.
The Swamp is. We talk about like big stadiums like Texas A&M and Tennessee, but the Swamp is what is probably like a top 5 environment when the team is good.
Well, and especially during the daytime.
Oh,
so
yeah.
when it's actually feeling like a swamp, those Auburn kids were dying out there, and they couldn't feed off the energy. So I give the Gators credit, man. They outcoached and outplayed what I thought was a superior opponent. But now, unfortunately, as we'll get to in the preview, they've got a gigantic test ahead of them. But let's continue with these reviews and with probably with some pace because we're going long. And then we'll get over to that preview.
All right. We got Cal here on the road against Oregon. Oregon takes this one home 17-7 in what was a very, very ugly game.
Ugly. Horrible.
The difference here, and I hate boiling things down this way, but the difference here is that Oregon has a quarterback who's going to probably be the number 1 overall pick, if not top 5 pick in the draft.
Yep.
And despite having zero talent really around him outside of Jacob Breland at tight end, Justin Herbert continues to produce. Oregon, the Oregon defense is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Really, really good. I don't know if you saw number 1 recruit in the country, Kayvon Thibodeau, had himself a little game here. He only finished with 3 tackles, but they were 2 of them were sacks. So they get after the quarterback really well. They finished with 4 sacks here. Devon Modster obviously played QB for Cal because Garbers is still hurt, and Devon Modster is just not good. I don't really know what else.
You knew that going in. What's funny is Oregon is a drive, one weird Bo Nix drive away from being in the same conversation that we're having about Clemson.
Right.
Their one loss is to Auburn, and it was a kind of a fluke. Yeah. They played them, on a neutral site right there. Now, did Auburn get exposed a little bit this weekend, which thus, affects Oregon? Sure, except for the fact that any team going into the Swamp in that type of environment with what we've really solidified is probably a top 5 defense in college football, you're not going to have a lot of success.
And plus, Auburn could still go on and win a game against, like we said, they still play LSU, Georgia, and Alabama, right?
Yeah, right. So they still have a chance to improve their rankings too. Oregon, that's the thing that I've noticed is what you pointed out, which is their lack of skill position talent is surprising to me.
It's weird, right? Yeah. Because that was what was Oregon back in the day when Oregon was like. They have Marcus Mariota. They have LaMichael Thomas.
LaMichael James.
So they had guys, right?
Right. Well,
and this team just doesn't. Their best skill position players at tight end.
Right, and they still have some speed. They do. They have those 2 speedy little running backs. But at the same time, it's surprising to me that over the last few years, as they sort of built back up into this, because they took a little dip for a minute at the end of the Herzlich run. But it's strange to me that they haven't had a stud skill position player come in for them. And so as you look at the rest of the year for Oregon, it's they're in this strange limbo because for them obviously they're just competing for the Pac-12 championship, and that's the thing that you hang your hat on at the end of the day. But they're like
Rose Bowl, baby.
the one team left in the Pac-12 that has a weird outside shot if a lot of things break their way to go to the playoff. But it's this strange thing where if they start sort of thinking about that and start thinking too big, they could easily lose another game in conference. Easily. Because the Pac-12 is so weird. And because their lack of skill position talent means Herbert has to be really, really good every game.
Right. And so, and this can be my last thought, we can move on.
Yeah.
The thing that separates Oregon from the other upper echelon Pac-12 teams this year is that they've been consistent every week, right?
They have.
Whereas every other team is literally just a crapshoot. Like, you never know what you're going to get from Utah's offense, and you never know how Jacob Eason is going to play against a Power 5 team.
They are all Iowa State.
Right, exactly. So that pretty much does it for me. I do agree Oregon's the last bastion of hope for the Pac-12 and any chance of – and it won't.
It's not going to happen. Right.
All right. This game
the ugliest
sucks.
game of all time. And I watched like almost all of it.
All right, so
myself.
Michigan 10, Iowa 3 in the big house, right? Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
We don't have to do any other analysis on this game other than I'm just going to read the drive results for you. All right, ready? Strap in. Here we go.
Oh boy.
All right, Michigan starts off the game, punt, fumble by Iowa, field goal by Michigan, punt by Iowa, touchdown by Michigan. So there's Michigan's 10 points.
Oh my God.
That was in the first quarter, okay? And we have fumble by Iowa, interception by Michigan, interception by Iowa, punt by Michigan, field goal by Iowa. So by the end of the second quarter, the scoring is done. So this is when it gets juicy. Ready?
Oh boy.
Punt, interception, downs, interception, punt, missed field goal, punt, end of fourth quarter.
That's disgusting. That's so
what an abortion of a game.
It was you know what the worst part is?
Yeah, tell me.
I didn't feel like either team actually played defense that well.
It was weird, right? Nate Stanley was 23 of 42 for 260 yards and 3 interceptions.
Yeah, no, like I didn't feel as I was watching the game, I'm like, I don't think that this is because these defenses are so dominant. I was just like, this is some of the worst offensive football I've ever seen. I was with a fan watching the game, and he was like, yeah, we suck. I don't even know. Like, it'll be cool to win, but God, this is horrible.
With Nate Stanley's sack yardage factored in, Iowa rushed for 1 yard on 30 carries.
Oh, good. That's solid.
Yeah, so that's what you're looking for. Shea Patterson, still not good. So, who does Michigan play this week? I don't even know. They've got Illinois. They might lose to Illinois.
Oh,
all right.
Lovey Smith's beer.
Moving
on.
Yeah, dude, they could lose to Illinois. I should have picked that as my. All right, let's move on.
Whatever.
All right, this one, on the other hand, you want to talk about some fun football. Jeremy, this one's right up your alley.
SMU
Mustangs, 24. Tulsa Golden Hurricanes, 36. Golden Hurricanes is an awful name, by the way.
Wait.
43, it's got some real
43 to 37. It's
got some real Donald Trump implications with the Golden Hurricanes.
All right, let's just
all right.
steal dossier, hop our way out of this. SMU, man.
3 overtimes.
It's a weird year for SMU. There's some weird magic happening there. You don't continue an undefeated season with a triple overtime game unless that's going to keep going. You know what I mean? Like when undefeated teams play triple overtime.
We're talking Team of Destiny stuff here?
Yeah, we're talking Team of Destiny stuff because if you win that game, it's Team of Destiny. You lose that game, it's you were a fraud.
You want to know
Tulsa was up 30-9.
Yeah, 30-9.
30-9. And lost.
And then Zach Smith proceeded to shit his pants for the rest of the game.
It was unbelievable. But SMU's like in this weird driver's seat at this point, right? Like, if SMU, and this is the thing that, now all of a sudden, as the AAC is getting this respect in the rankings, and you have 3 ranked teams, and you have all these other teams. UCF is the 5th ranked team according in the AAC according to the AP voters. When you have the Tulanes and the Temples, etc. If SMU wins the AAC as an undefeated team, they're gonna go to a New Year's Six bowl game. Like, they'll jump Boise. They will, and that's freaking fascinating.
Yeah, because they still have games. They still have games against Temple, Memphis, Houston, Navy, and Tulane.
Right. I mean, that's
a good schedule.
Stretch. I mean, they might go 2-3 in that stretch. But if they do roll their way through it, they are now. This is like the scare, right? Where every undefeated season has one game where it's a scare against a team, even if it only is a scare that goes into the third quarter. There's a scare against a team that shouldn't be involved. Shouldn't be involved in the scare. They're going to struggle against Memphis. They're going to struggle against Tulane. Those are teams that are good, that are on their caliber. But every undefeated season has one of these games, and the fact that they survived it, has to make you feel really good if you're SMU.
And I'll say this about SMU: Shane Buechele is rightfully getting a lot of love James Porsche, the wide receiver.
Oh, he's good.
He's a stud, man.
Yeah.
And like you said, Xavier Jones kind of paced them the whole game with his game at the running back position. But
they're really playing well in every phase of the game, which is crazy.
With Jones and Porsche, that's a good 1-2, and then you have a steady quarterback like Buechele.
Yeah. Right.
That's what it takes to get it done.
Position players. I mean, not to always. I mean, I'm just gonna do it. It reminds me a little bit of. You had the reliability of J.J. Wharton with UCF a few years back, and Storm Johnson out of the backfield, who was
talking Blake Bortles era.
The pace to you, yeah. And then you go to Bortles, who in college was a really steady quarterback that could make just enough big plays, to make it happen. It's like Shane Buechele. I mean, I'm not trying to say they're not going undefeated and winning a bowl game, but SMU, I don't know.
Watch out, Baylor, if you're.
Oh man. All right. So,
all right. Quick hitters?
Quick hitters. Let's do this.
My first quick hitter this week, I've got Army versus Tulane for a couple of reasons. The Tulane jerseys last weekend were just perfect, right? Like, you said it. If you're not watching Tulane and you consider yourself like a deeply rooted and interested college football fan, you're doing yourself a disservice because the jerseys are great, the offensive system they're running is great, and their defense is playing sneakily really well. And they could very well end up being the AAC champion this year if people keep sleeping on them.
Which would be
so. I'm just saying a lot. I'm just going to keep gassing Tulane until somebody in their athletic department stumbles across these videos and they just send me free gear.
I have a legitimate question that I have.
Yeah, what's up?
Not a joke. Does SMU play at Tulane this year? Because if so, we might need to go to that game.
SMU plays home against Temple.
Darn. No, wait, Tulane.
Yeah, home against Tulane. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, that's their last game of the season.
Darn it. Because who wants to go to SMU? But I would have loved to go to New Orleans.
I mean, it's still – Dallas is not a bad area from everything I've heard.
We could go to Dallas. We could go to Dallas. If both
of
those –
they have Amtrak's doing buy one, get one free train rides right now.
Look, if both of those teams are still undefeated – we
might have to talk about it.
We might have to discuss it.
All right.
Okay.
Real quick, and then Joe Burrow continues to dominate for LSU against Utah State. The LSU defense looks to be rounding into form. They made – I don't know where this Jordan Love NFL draft hype came from. He's great. He's really good. He's better than Josh Allen was when he was at Buffalo. So I get it to a certain extent. But they made him look very not good. He only threw for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. And that's probably the most talented defense he'll ever face in college, which doesn't speak well to his NFL transition. And then finally, I have Baylor versus Kansas State. Baylor is for real. They've got 2 elite-level wide receivers with Tyquan Thornton and Denzel Mims. They have a solid running game. Charlie Brewer-Hive is alive and thriving. And their defense is really good, too, which could add spice to their upset potential when they play OU or Texas because they have the best defense of those 3 teams, unquestionably.
Yeah, that part is legitimate. Like talking about Baylor's defense, it's real. It's real. I was wrong.
And their offense is set up in a way where they can score with the teams they need to score with to beat them.
I was wrong about them. They're very good, which means they're going to lose this week. So, Stanford and Washington, what a weird, disappointing season for Washington, huh? Like Jacob Eason really has not been as good as I thought he was going to be.
Have you seen his numbers against Power 5 opponents and non-Power 5 opponents?
It's a gigantic split.
Yeah, it's bad.
Gigantic split.
It's aggressively terrible.
Yeah, and it's a shame. And so now you got Stanford, who is like this weird team that, they're 2-2 in conference, but they've got a bunch of home games and like
Stanford's here to just screw everything up for everybody else at this point.
Exactly. Yeah. Then there's Miami losing to Virginia Tech at home, which like,
which is saying a lot because Virginia Tech looked
horrible,
flat out terrible. Like one of the worst Power 5 teams in the country this year.
It was 28-0 midway through the second quarter, and yeah, Miami had their cute little comeback, but the fact that they came back and tied the game at 35 and then just let Virginia Tech march right down the field and score a touchdown to win.
Gotta love it.
Oh my God. I wish UCF hadn't lost this weekend because it would have made for so much more fun for me as a Miami hater. And then the last one, Memphis over Louisiana Monroe. Memphis is just weird, is all I wanted to say to this pretty much. I don't think they're good, but they're winning.
Okay.
A lot.
And we'll speak on Memphis later. They're in our previews, so.
Yeah, and it's like similar to what we were talking about before with SMU, like the tough part of Memphis's schedule comes up now. And so I'm just intrigued to see what happens as they play good teams because they haven't really played like dominant football against a single team they've played this year, but they played well enough to win all of them relatively handily. So it's like this fine line where they're not dominating, but they're certainly not struggling. And they're just weird. That's all I wanted to say was just they're fucking weird.
All right. I don't think we have to do news today since we're kind of pressed for time and there's really not anything interesting going on. Maybe next week we'll do conference checks, like just
that sounds good.
Since it's the start of like conference play, really these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and then just quick thing on news that's not really news, but like that one Penn State fan that decided to be super racist toward a Penn State player. Penn State, go ahead and go forward. Yeah. I just wanted to point it out. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and look it up.
All right. Last week's recap of the Saturday six-pack. This is the first week we got three of the same games wrong. Yep. Usually when we pick together, we get the games right.
Yeah.
We both got Cincinnati beating UCF wrong. We should never pick a UCF game again. It's just bad for us.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not ended well once. No. Florida beat Auburn, which neither of us got, and neither of us got Michigan beating Iowa. I think that was a little bit more of our Iowa, not our Iowa love, but our Michigan hate coming through.
Yes.
Because in all honesty, we should have seen that coming. Right?
Of course we should have. Michigan at home, but we just hate Michigan.
But we did both get Ohio State beating Michigan State correct and Oregon beating Cal correct. And then the only game that we picked differently was Baylor and Kansas State, and I got that one correct, which leaves us at myself 22-8 for the year, and you back below 500 at 14-16. But I'm very confident that you're going to finish either slightly above 500 or 500 for the year, which, if you were gambling, that's perfect. You're breaking even.
Yeah. I want to finish over 500 so bad. This is stupid. I'm going to get there. The more things shape out, it's like earlier in the year, it's volatile, right? But as
the games will be easier to pick, right?
It's going to get easier and easier, you would think, as we go along, although not an easy
College football stands for chaos, though, right?
Oh, yeah. I love it. All right. And speaking of chaos.
Yeah, this game could get weird, right? So we have the Red River. Try saying Red River rivalry 3 times fast.
Red River rivalry. Red River rivalry. Red River rivalry. That was not easy at all.
It doesn't sound right however you say it. Yeah. It's the big nude Saturday game this weekend, as Gus Johnson says it. This is probably, to me, the most anticipated or like the most excited I've been for this matchup in years between Oklahoma and Texas.
So many years, yeah.
Also, this is a game that maybe one year we need to get out to as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it happens during the Texas State Fair. Oh. So, there's like fried things everywhere.
There's fried things everywhere.
Literally everywhere. There's animals. So, it would make for a great weekend, a little bro weekend. We'll talk about it maybe next year. That would be
another
fun.
Time.
As long as Lincoln Riley's still involved, right?
Exactly.
So I think the biggest thing when you're talking about this game is neither team has proven that they can play defense yet this year.
Yeah.
Texas is still very injured on the defensive side of the ball. And then that speaks directly to no one being able to slow down Jalen Hurts at any point this season. And it doesn't really feel like that's going to change this week. What I will say, if you are pulling for Oklahoma, is that this is the first real test that they've played defensively. So if Alex Grinch really has turned this defense around, this is the week we'll be able to see it, because Texas has been moving the ball on literally everybody they've played.
Right. Well, including LSU. And so like that's the thing. That's the thing that does concern me a little bit if I'm Oklahoma, is like, you know, Texas would be ranked probably higher than Oklahoma had they, you know, they were a couple of plays away from beating LSU. I mean, LSU, you know, won that game at the end relatively handily, but a couple things go your way in like the third quarter there where it was close, and Texas is not far off. I just, you know, you spoke to their injuries on the defensive side. You spoke to their lack of ability to stop anyone on the defensive side to begin with. And I just think that Oklahoma is the better coached and more talented team. Not significantly in either of those things, to be honest. Tom Herman's a really good coach. Texas is very talented, but it's much harder to find there's not a lot of teams with better coaches and better talent than Oklahoma. And the way that they've been playing in terms of efficiency, there was a chart I was sent. It was from Bill Connolly. That was talking about Jalen Hurts' QBR in like all the different zones of the football field. And if you broke it down into, I think, 16 zones or 14 zones or something like that, it was like 9 of them. He had a 100 QBR, like perfect QBR in all of these different zones passing the ball. And in a couple other ones, there were 99s. And then, it was down to like 80. Like, he's been so unbelievably efficient with the ball that I have a hard time thinking. I have to imagine Oklahoma's defense will be the one that makes the one play necessary more likely than Texas.
I tend to agree with a lot of the stuff you said. I will say, for some reason, and I don't know why this is, I trust Sam Ehlinger more in a big game than I do Jalen Hurts.
That's totally fair. That's totally fair. And for that matter, is Texas at home during this one? Like, you know.
No, they're this is the neutral site.
Right. Of course.
They play it at the Cotton Bowl, I think.
Yeah.
The over/under in this game is 75.5. Would you take the over or the under here?
Over.
You smashing the over, or just like a 10?
No, I'm just like, I'm confident that it's the over, but I'm not like I don't know.
Also, Oklahoma's favored by 10.5 points, which feels like
too many points. See, that I would smash Texas. This is going to be a close game. And for that matter, Texas could win. You know, I love Sam Ehlinger. Like, you know.
So you're picking Oklahoma.
I am going to pick Oklahoma, even though I want to pick Texas.
So I want to pick Oklahoma, but I'm going to pick Texas.
We both are just going to hate ourselves.
We're both complete morons and maniacs.
Yep.
All right. So that I guess there's that for that game.
No, that's all we got to do. That's it.
All right. So you have Oklahoma, I have Texas. Both betting against our hearts here.
Rooting for the other. All right. Alabama and Texas A&M. It's Alabama's, I guess, first like major test, right? They're going into Texas A&M. Although we saw Clemson, who sort of underwhelmed thus far this season, go into Texas A&M and handle things. We saw Auburn, right? They went to Mississippi State.
Right.
But, you know, Texas A&M is a really good team. But, Meech, do you think they're good enough to really hang with Bama here?
So this is my thing. We talk about a lot of teams not playing anybody so far this year.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about you could talk about a lot of teams, right? You could talk about Oklahoma. You could talk about Ohio State even to a degree, but last week they played Michigan State, right? Alabama has legitimately not played a single team worth a shit all season. And that is no offense to Duke, who has been plucky.
Yeah.
They've been kind of feisty. You know, Duke's a good enough team.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of Duke, and Duke did not have their stuff together in week one, right? They've kind of morphed into this team. This is the first, like, team where I can confidently confidently say that is a good team that Alabama is playing.
Yeah.
And say what you want about Jimbo, because there's a lot of things to say about Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah.
But his teams do not often get beat down, right?
Yeah. No.
And so if Alabama is playing a close game that they've not played in all year,
yeah,
and they're playing unquestionably the best offense and best quarterback that they have played all year with the questions they have at linebacker, and still we have a lot of questions left over from last national championship against Texas A&M.
Oh, boy.
Against Clemson. What exactly are we going to see from Alabama? That's what I'm curious about, right? Because I don't doubt that they will still score around 34 points with unquestionably the most talented offense that they've had ever, and which is arguably one of the most talented offenses we might ever see in our lifetimes. My question is how, because this is in Kyle Field, Field.
It's at Texas A&M, which does make a difference. It does.
So I don't know, man. I don't particularly buy into this Alabama being the unquestionably best team in the country this year. I just don't think when it's all said, I say all this to say this, is that I still don't think A&M has enough to win the game.
Yeah, I don't think that A&M has enough, just in terms of, I think they'll make more mistakes than Alabama will. Offensively and defensively. Like, I think, one blown coverage and it's a 75-yard touchdown for Alabama because their speed is so ridiculous. And that's the thing that I think is going to change things for me. I think this will be close, especially in the first half. Like you mentioned, Alabama's going to get hit in the mouth for the first time. Let's see what happens. Once they do, but I tend to think that Alabama is too talented, too disciplined to lose this football game, even on the road. But
Texas A&M, like we've said, is still missing a couple of things to get them to Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So we both have Alabama here. I will say if Texas A&M had a little bit more of a running game to where they could take advantage of this Alabama linebacker situation,
but
it might be a little different, but they don't.
Right.
They severely miss Travion Williams, more so than I thought that they think maybe they would have.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
All right. Now this next game here, Penn State versus Iowa, is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. Sean Clifford, no one's talking about him. I think he's very easily the second best quarterback in the Big Ten.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I think that, I think Penn State might be the second best team in the Big Ten, even better than Wisconsin. And so this week will show us really, because, Wisconsin looks great, right? But they've beaten Michigan, really, is their only notable win of the season.
Right.
That being said, Penn State has played nobody outside of Pitt, who beat UCF.
Why you got to do that one, huh? Why you got to go there?
I really like Penn State. So I don't know about you.
I agree. I think that Clifford is a absolutely the second best quarterback in that conference. Not saying much considering quarterback play in the Big Ten is probably the worst of any of the Power Five conferences. Right? I mean, that's like not really much of a conversation. This would be. So here's where we're at. Penn State needs a statement win. Going into Iowa and dominating would be that statement win. And the reason I think that they can do it is because they have the opposite of the hype train going around for them thus far this season. Like, where there's all these other teams, UCF included. You brought UCF up first. But there's all these other teams that, go into these games that they can kind of sleepwalk through, and then all of a sudden, you're at Iowa, which is a tough place to play, and you get plucked off, when you're a top 10 team. I sort of feel the opposite about Penn State. I feel like Penn State's not being talked about enough in terms of where they are ranked in the country. And this is their chance to sort of go in and try to dominate against Iowa, who we saw is not very good, but is still going to be a big ranked win for them. I didn't think Iowa's defense was all that smothering that it makes me so concerned for Clifford. I think he's good enough that they can win this game something like, I don't know, like 27-10. you know?
Right, exactly. And that's the thing, right, where, when you talk about Penn State in recent years, you've thought about their offense, right? You've thought about Saquon Barkley. You've thought about Trace McSorley. You've thought about Deshaun Hamilton.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin, I think, was there. So
Allen
they've had, Allen Robinson, Mike Gesicki, even, right? So
man, they've
but quietly, their defense has been incredible in this run as well.
Yeah.
And that's what's put them – because Ohio State and Michigan, like these last couple of years, have had about as good of a run as those two programs have had.
Yeah.
And Penn State has been right there the entire time, right?
Yep.
And this Penn State defense, like we spent a lot of this time talking about Sean Clifford, but this Penn State defense might be the best Penn State defense of this run.
Well, and that's why I think that they can handle a team on
and
the
they
road.
can heil Iowa, right?
Yeah.
Because Iowa doesn't have the same playmakers that they did last year. They don't have Noah Fant, and they don't have T.J. Hawkinson.
Right.
And they're not getting the run game going as easily as they have in recent years.
Yeah. This feels like it could be the win that sort of makes everyone talk about Penn State. Would I be shocked if
and
Iowa
we're talking about –
Wait, sorry.
Of course not. If Kirk Ferentz won this game, I would be like, it's just like the sun setting. It's going to happen eventually.
It'd be totally unsurprising if they won. But
it's going to make me angry when they do because it's going to happen.
Yeah, we all know it. At Iowa, come on. All the kids, waving. Yeah. It's Iowa. It's Iowa.
And it's funny. We're talking about no one talking about Penn State. They're the 10th ranked team in the country.
No, but that's my point.
Right, exactly.
Is like more people have spent their nationally. We've spent so much more time talking about like Oregon, who's 13th, who's already lost a game and hasn't beat anybody, than we have talking about Penn State. You and I barely have talked about Penn State at all.
This is the first we've previewed or reviewed any of their games.
Yeah. I mean, they're 10th in the country, and it's in part because I don't think that they're in that tier of the following teams. But at the same time, man,
they could be though. Like we've not seen.
I don't know.
They could be.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun to watch this game. This is a good one. This is a good one in terms of if you want to gauge whether or not
actually
in that tier, you can do it with this game.
An actual exciting Big Ten game is a lot to ask for, and we have one.
Yeah, look at that. All right, game 4.
All right, so this is the Big Daddy, right?
Yeah.
Do you think this is the best game of the weekend, or do you think it's Texas versus Oklahoma?
It's Texas versus Oklahoma because that'll be closer.
Oh, okay. So I'm interested to hear why you say that. So Florida LSU, obviously, in Baton Rouge. Mm-hmm. You think this is going to be a blowout?
I don't know if it's necessarily a blowout, but man, so the one thing I will say is
LSU's favored by the same margin they're favored by more points than Oklahoma was over Texas.
I am aware.
They're 13.5-point favorite.
And I think that that's probably better than Oklahoma's 10-point favorite over Texas. Yeah, because look, LSU, we saw it last year. LSU's really, 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 really good. Their offense is really, really, really good. And the big difference, look, it's two differences. Their defense and Auburn's defense, you could make the argument that Auburn's defense is actually better than LSU.
I would say, very solidly so.
Right. Auburn did make a couple of big mistakes, though. If you really look at the way that Auburn's defense played, the first drive, a missed tackle is a 75-yard touchdown for the Gators. Who knows if they continue to move the ball? It would have been a tackle at midfield. Mm-hmm. And then a horrible angle from a safety, and it's an 85-yard rushing touchdown for the Gators.
Yep.
Auburn's defense played really, really, really well. So that, whatever. What you could take from there is if LSU doesn't make those same mistakes defensively, will the Gators be able to move the ball at all? Because now you have a slightly nicked up Kyle Trask, which I don't really think that matters because it's not like he's running around anyway. Yeah. But a slightly nicked up Kyle Trask now on the road in Death Valley, playing against LSU, who was rolling. And as great as Florida's defense is, and that does travel, they're not facing a freshman. They're facing Joe Burrow, who is a fifth-year senior, who
Joe Dirt, baby,
played all the way through. But that's a guy that's experienced and understands an offense at a level that Bo Nix just can't yet.
Right.
So all of that leads me to feeling like, look, I'm not out here. It's not to say that the Gators are bad by any means. I just think LSU might be LSU. If Ohio State's not the best team in the country, it might be LSU. Like
Right.
LSU
I don't disagree at all.
they're amazing. And to be playing at home right after, the blood, sweat, and tears that went into beating Auburn, I just don't think Florida's going to have enough to win this game. And it's honestly, I'm not being a Florida hater. This is not an indictment on Florida. That sold me. Like that win over Auburn sold me. They are one of the 10 best teams in the country, regardless of what happens this weekend. I
Right.
would feel that way. They could lose by 35, and I would still feel like they're one of the 10 best teams in the country, and just not on that tier. LSU has to win this football game.
So I'm going to do the thing where it seems like it's my brand now at this point, where I tell you why I don't like LSU, and then I'm still going to pick LSU to
That's
win.
fair. No, that's fair. Go for it.
This is what scares me if I'm LSU.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about it with Penn State, and we talked about it with Alabama. They have not played anybody near the I guess they played Texas. They played Texas.
Yeah.
Let me walk that back a little bit. And Texas's defense is not Florida's defense.
That's the difference. So they haven't played.
This is the best. This is unquestionably the best defense that they will play up until this point all year, and it might be sneakily the best defense they play all season.
Yeah. Weird.
Right?
Yeah.
So the benefits, the good things on LSU: Joe Burrow at home with an offense that just looks to be rolling.
Yeah.
The things that scare me is their defense has not been playing as well as you would hope of an LSU defense.
Correct.
Florida kind of, playing at Auburn the week before is a double-edged sword, right? Because you put in a lot of effort and energy to win that game at home. So maybe it takes a little energy out of you. But at the same time, maybe it galvanizes you to say, hey, we can go and beat anybody in the country, right?
Yeah.
And I will say this. Florida and LSU is sneakily a really, really big rivalry. Those two teams.
Great rivalry. They hate each other.
Those two teams cannot stand each other. Those fan bases cannot stand each other.
But the players, too. I was listening to
the players hate each other.
They hate each other. They hate each other.
Yeah. That being said, I think I'm going to go LSU here. If this was in the swamp, I think I would pick Florida, in all honesty.
Yeah, that's a different conversation. But it matters. Home field
But LSU just does not lose night games in
That's what I'm saying.
Valley. They just don't.
Saying. I don't care who they were. You could have literally told me this week any team in the country was going to go to LSU at night, and I was going to tell you LSU is going to win the game.
Yeah, like, hey, you've got Oklahoma's offense is traveling with Auburn's defense to LSU to play them this weekend.
LSU is going to win at home. Yep.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. All right, let's go quickly through these last couple here, if we can.
Okay. So I put Memphis Temple on here for a couple reasons. We talk about neither teams not playing anybody yet because after week 6, that's when you start getting into the meat of your conference schedule, right?
Uh-huh.
It's kind of, to me, Temple might not be as good as we think Temple is.
Yeah. Because
their big win was 20-17 over Maryland, and we've come to find out that Maryland is fucking awful.
Yeah, Maryland's not very good.
So that being said, Memphis to me should run away with this one.
They should. If Memphis,
but you're not sold on Memphis, right?
So I'm not sold on Memphis. So what I was gonna say is, if Memphis is what they claim to be, and what everyone thinks that they are, they should run away with this game. Because they should be able to pound the rock, they should be able to not turn the ball over. Their defense,
play good defense.
Their defense is actually legitimately pretty good. That much.
Not as good as I thought it would be.
No, and that's another big part of this. But the reason I think this game will still be close is because it's at Temple. And I know
their defense plays well at home, really well.
Right,
at home.
And it's not like Temple has this gigantic, crazy, ravaged fan base that going into Temple is really going to be that nuts at noon on a Saturday, right? But it's still not playing at your home stadium. It's going into a place where you have a team that has sort of, I don't want to say overachieved, but overachieved a little bit thus far, and is probably feeling themselves in Temple and feels confident. They're at home.
Temple losing to Buffalo is one of the weirdest results of the season.
Yeah. And I so badly want to pick Temple because I just don't like Memphis that much. But Memphis is the better football team and should have enough to go into Temple and win the game, is at least how I feel.
Temple's defense is elite again. I think we can agree on that. Like, this is a good defense. But Memphis is starting to figure out their running game, which is huge for them. Yeah. Brady White is doing Brady White things where he's doing just enough to not lose them games.
Right, he's being Brady White.
Right. The over-under on this game is 50.5. I would definitely take the under on this one.
Oh yeah, that's a.
This feels like a 17-10 kind of game.
Yeah, it does.
I will say Anthony Russo playing at home is a little interesting to me. I like that.
Yeah.
But all things considered, I think I'm going to take Memphis as well.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Our last game.
We don't have to spend any more than 3 minutes on this last one.
Notre Dame hosts.
There was not a lot to choose from.
No, it's cool. Notre Dame at USC. Do you have any thoughts on it? I'm not even going to give any thoughts. I'm literally just going to let you do your thing.
I'll say that it's weird that Notre Dame is only favored by 11 points.
Uh-huh.
Do we know the health of Kadon Slovis by any chance?
I don't know the health of Kadon Slovis.
They're playing in South Bend.
Yep.
Yeah, this feels like this feels like not a good situation for USC.
I tend to agree with you.
Yeah. Slovis is medically cleared and is slated to start against Notre Dame.
Okay.
That has me a little bit more intrigued in a potential USC upset.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't. This is my thing.
So I'm just gonna.
No, this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, and then I'll finish up. Go ahead, and then I'll finish up.
No. You do your thing. Do your thing.
All right. Notre Dame is the better team. They're playing well on defense.
Yep.
Which is huge because the USC defense is not playing well. But the USC defense does have the talent if they decide to step it up to force Ian Book to beat them. And I don't think Ian Book can go out and beat a team. But he does have Cole Kmet and Chase Claypool who can help him beat another team. I think I want to pick USC very, very badly just because Notre Dame tends to put up a stinker every once in a while.
Yep.
And if they put up a stinker against this USC team in particular, I think there's a lot of upset potential here.
Yep.
But I'm still going to pick Notre Dame.
Yeah, and see, so that's why I kind of breezed by our preview games here when I was going through our doc. This is my onion hanger upset pick of the week. USC off a bye.
You're going with an onion hanger in the six-pack.
Six-pack.
I salute your savagery there.
That's my nice moment. That's my moment. My onion hanger is USC is going to take down Notre Dame. They're going to go into South Bend, Indiana with Kadon Slovis off a bye week and beat down the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Oh,
book it.
That's spicy. I like that. Right. So just to review our six-pack picks, you have Oklahoma. I have Texas, which was the reverse of how we thought.
Yes, correct.
We both have Alabama. We both have Penn State. We both have LSU.
We both have Memphis.
And then we're split. You took USC. I took Notre Dame.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
All right. So let's do this. Real quick, wrap things up. Your grown man of the week. Do you have one?
You give me yours first because I've been split between two guys and I haven't been able to decide. So you talking might help me get.
What I'm just gonna say is Louisville's receiving core as a whole last week. That includes former Northwestern High School quarterback Tutu Atwell. But Louisville's receiving core, they had 3 receivers with over 100 yards each. They had a 41-39 win over Boston College. I know that's not much because it's Boston College and they're terrible, but they stepped up when they needed it. All those receivers had crazy games, and it's not like their quarterback really didn't play that efficiently. It was all to those 3 guys.
Right.
And it was pretty interesting to see. So Louisville's receiving core are my grown men of the week.
All right, so we talked about it. I don't like giving grown man of the week to a player that we talk about a lot.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and I know they were only playing Kent State, but Jonathan Taylor's adding to his Heisman campaign here with 19 carries, 186 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I mean, what can you do with that guy? Like, how do you stop him?
You can't, especially with
You
that
know what
offensive
team I
line.
really want to see him go to? And, like, this is how I can kind of spin it to put it in the Grown Man of the Week. You know what team I really want to see him on next year in the NFL? I'd love to see him on the Chiefs.
Oh, my God. He'd be
Because
ridiculous.
he can, like, because, you know, obviously the main focus of the Wisconsin offense is to run the
I
ball.
hate you.
But sneakily, he's a very good pass catcher.
That
When he
would be
catches the ball,
insane. That would be
yeah, he would
insane.
be great, right?
Oh,
So
my
that's
God.
just something to keep on the back burner.
Oh, wow. All right.
We both have the same most college football thing I saw, and honestly, I want to thank the Cincinnati content department because play it here. And we're back.
Yep.
So that is the most savage trolling I've ever seen. And there's not a fan base that deserves it more than the UCF fan base.
Yeah, we deserve it. We deserve it. And I loved it. I saw them post it, and there was nothing I could say to criticize. I wasn't mad. I saw it.
It was perfect.
And I was like, it's so well done. It's perfect.
Do you know how many times I watched that?
I've watched it at least 10.
I was going to say at least 15 times for me.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's funny every single time. So
every single time. And
every time.
I hate to keep going back, and because I am a member of the UCF fan base,
Yeah.
But my God, we're like, I've never seen a team with 2 years, a beautiful 2-year run.
Yeah.
We're the most entitled fan base in college football, I feel like, as a group of 5 school, unquestionably.
I guess.
Unquestionably. Because, like, just, you know, temper your expectations a little bit, people. We're not going to win every single game. It's impossible. It's never happened.
I think I think the expectation, it all changed with Stanford. I became that person that thought this team was going to run the table again after Stanford. And I didn't think – we talked openly before the season about how I thought there'd be a loss or two. Unsure, Brandon Wimbush, Dylan Gabriel, whatever. And
true freshman quarterback. Like, that was my thing, is people saying, like, UCF fans reacting like, oh, we suck again. Or I sat through an 0-12 season. I was at every home game when there was 4 people in the crowd. And I don't want to hear it. I would take this year's team over the 6-6 Scott Frost second-year team.
Yes.
Where Mackenzie Milton was out there fumbling every other possession. Yeah. Dylan Gabriel, like, these kids, these UCF fans these days do not know how nice they have it, where Dylan Gabriel was 6th in the nation in passing efficiency as a true freshman. And you and me were talking. We were at Wackadoos. Yep. Rest in peace, Wackadoos. Long live the lost UCF sports bar. Yep. But Jesus Christ, we were in Wackadoos basically in tears about how bad Mackenzie Milton looked, saying, if this is the future of the program,
what are we going to do?
I'm not sure what we're doing.
Yeah, and then here we are years later begging.
I was literally sitting there like, what a long way we've come. We are amazing. Such a spoiled fan base. It's ridiculous.
We are. It happened real fast, but I love it. Who cares? It's fun.
Thank you, Cincinnati, for putting us back into our place. That's all I'm going to say.
It was amazing. And then Onion Hanger, I told you I had USC over Notre Dame, and who is yours? Which yours is just go for it.
So I'm putting this in here because I'm laying the foundation for a Tulane to the New Year's Six bowl game since UCF can no longer do it.
Do it.
And you know I've been Hawaii High all season long. Cole McDonald Stan, #1. That's me. Hawaii going on the road to the blue turf, taking it to Boise, and Hank Buckmeyer.
Oh,
I would put the actual chances of this happening at like 40%.
Okay.
But I'm doing it. Hawaii's taking it over Boise, setting up the path for Tulane to make it to a New Year's Six game. That's my brand, and I'm sticking to it.
I love it. So Hawaii over Boise, USC over Notre Dame, UCF's fan base is spoiled, And that is the end of our conversation. A great episode of the Preferred Walk-Ons.
I do want to say real quick, if you've watched it to the end, next week there will not be a full show because I will be on vacation.
Boo,
but we're going to do our 6-pack on Friday for next week.
Yep.
So, so we can keep our picks records going throughout the year. So be on the lookout for that.
Thank you guys for watching. And, go Knights on the bye week. All right.
Yeah.